What's up guys, in this video I'm going to share with you my experiences with using the older StepCast 32 fork and the newer StepCast 32 fork. When Fox first introduced the StepCast 32, it really pushed the boundaries of cross-country forks. What was really amazing about it was the weight. It was under 3 pounds for a fork with 32 millimeter stanchions. Now I was really excited about this fork, but it had one major downside, and that's the flexy nature of the fork. Now I weigh anywhere from 170 to 180 pounds, so I'm a little bit on the heavier side when it comes to like cross-country riders. I'm not your World Cup exoskeleton. Now when I first used the StepCast, I was really blown away with how light the front end felt. It reminded me of the old Cannondale Lefty, which I love by the way. The weight is down there, it was like 2.98 pounds or something like that, but the front end you could lift up so easy with the StepCast, and that was what I noticed to begin with it. All right, the one major downside, like I said before, was the twisting flexy nature of the fork. So going through turns, you would be leaning through a turn, like a fast turn. If you hit any kind of obstacle, rock or root or something, the fork would actually twist and it would cause your front wheel to turn a little bit. So depending on where you hit the obstacle, either it would make your front end really dig in deep and shoot you inside, or it would shoot you outside and then you would go down and lose traction on the front end. Okay, and I tend to ride more forward on the bike, and so I overweight the front end of my bikes, and because of that it really, the fork really becomes more twitchy, like an old school geometry with the StepCast. So that was one thing I was really worried about as a larger rider. Now as a smaller rider, you may not have that issue. All right, I did switch to the Fox 34 StepCast, which obviously has 34 millimeter stanchions on it. And that fork is great. It was much stiffer than the original 32 StepCast. It was a ½ pound weight penalty, but for me, it was worth it. But then Fox in 2019 came out with the newer StepCast 32 with claims that it is as stiff as the 34. And I was actually a bit skeptical about that. I was like, there's no way that little fork could be as stiff as the 34. So I went ahead and got it. Okay, so here are both forks. This is the older style. This is the newer style right here. I'm going to try to get a little closer to the camera so you can kind of see the difference. The difference is all located in this location right here, around the steerer tube. And you can see on this side it is much larger than this side. Also, the older one has the cutout here, all right, where they're trying to reduce weight as much as possible, where the newer model, that has stayed completely solid there. So really the big difference, the only difference, is this area here. You can see it's much thicker here, it's thicker here, and that is what attributed to the stiffness being added to the newer StepCast 32. All right, so let's check the widths of these. So you can see here the difference here and here. So the width, I'm just going kind of in the middle there. Looks like it's about 35 millimeter wide here. On this side, yeah, it's much narrower. I mean, you can see it too. It looks like it's about 28 millimeter on this one. So the old position here, old fork here, actually has 28 millimeter. This one is 30 millimeter. You can also see this section here is also wider than the original fork as well. So this is where the 30 millimeters of weight actually comes from, is right here on this area. Interesting is actually on the front, this here on the older fork is thick, but on the newer fork, this area is a lot thinner. So it looks like they just kind of repurposed the area with material where it really was needed versus where it wasn't needed. So the thickness of this right here is 20 millimeter, while the thickness of this over here was about 16 millimeter. So this one's a lot thinner looking at it on the front, but on this way it's a lot thicker. So I don't have any sophisticated machinery to be able to test the stiffness of these forks, but I can share my experience with it. And our local club puts on a time trial usually once a month. With this one time trial, We did it on some new trails, and it was newly cut by machinery, so it had little stobs sticking up and little roots sticking up everywhere, which would actually shoot your front tire offline. So it was really a great arena to test the stiffness of the fork and see if it would actually be, shot offline or whatnot. All right, so the first attempt that I did was actually with the older fork, and went out and hit a hard lap. And during that lap, actually I had like 2 very close catastrophic wrecks, going through some fast turns, hitting a root, and it would shoot me offline. I had to take, unclip, put my foot down to save it. And then one time I actually clipped a pedal and was bucked off the bike, and that was because my front wheel once again flexed, or the fork flexed, shot me offline. Then my pedal hit a root and bucked me off the bike. I jumped back on, got on the bike, and kept going as quickly as I could and finished the segment. So that does attribute to some slower time with the older fork. All right, so the next attempt I used the newer step cast, and I will say I was very impressed with the new step cast. Never did the front tire shoot offline. I mean, I hit roots and rocks and obstacles and stuff, but it would stay its course. It wouldn't twist or shoot me offline or cause me to almost wreck. And I was able to finish that second attempt without going down or having any kind of near wrecks. Obviously, you do sometimes wreck, but it wasn't the twisty nature and the all of a sudden giving way of like the older fork. Looking at the times, when I did the lap with the older fork, I turned a 12 minute and 26 second, and then it was 239 watt average. That included the wreck. So with the newer fork, I did an 11:27 with a 241 watt average, and obviously I did not have a wreck there. So as you can see, the newer fork, I was able to run about 1 minute faster. And if you look at the wattage was nearly the same, 239 to 241. So as far as, and the conditions were the same too. So obviously it was not completely the fork that made it where I was 1 minute faster. But I will say that in my opinion, it had a lot to do with the better time. I had more confidence going through all the turns. I could lean a little harder into the turns without fearing going down. And I will say that the newer fork is much better than the original fork, especially if you're a larger rider like me and you like to get up over the front of the bike. I do that from my motocross days, and I love a stiff front end. So if you're a larger rider and you do feel the flexy nature of your step cast, the original, then I would definitely recommend getting the newer step cast fork. Now, if you're a smaller rider, you probably won't feel much of a difference, in my opinion. If you don't already feel it, that the front fork is flexy, I would not worry about going with the newer one. Now, Fox does claim, once again, that the new one is as stiff as the 34. I don't know if I can go that far as stiffness claims, or at least my experiences with it, but I will say that the newer step cast is way better, for me at least, than the original. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you found it beneficial, be sure to hit that like button down below, share it with any of your friends, also subscribe to the channel, that helps out, and we'll see you in the next video.